Meg!
Interpretive dance.
We are on the pitch at PayPal Park in San Jose, maybe an hour or so after Gotham beat the Washington Spirit 1-0 to claim the 2025 NWSL Championship. Meg, the confetti is different.
I know, it's not confetti.
It's
not
tinsel.
yeah.
Theo thinks it's tinsel.
Okay.
Spiritually, it's confetti. It's used
Yes.
in the same way, but
Yes.
I'm trying to make a metaphor here because this was a very different Gotham team.
Yes.
Different confetti, different team. What a game. What a game. Let's start with the 2025 NWSL Champions, Gotham FC. They did it.
They did it. And now, you know, I saw Sue Bird, I think 3 or 4 times, come up to me and say, now we have to talk about a dynasty.
Do
right?
we?
That's what Sue Bird wants to talk about.
I never knew what the threshold was.
I think so, but when you think about where this team started as Sky Blue FC, I remember going to their only win of a season not that long ago. And then to think about where this team has come from as Sky Blue, as they've shifted into that Gotham identity, and now 2023 champions, 2024 semifinals, 2025 champions.
They're doing something right.
They're doing something right.
They're doing something right. I'm still processing. I went into this game believing that the Spirit were the better team, but that Gotham, if it came down to it, and it did, was the team far, actually, more likely to be able to do exactly what they did, which is find a way to win.
I think going in, everybody's head said Spirit, and that meant Gotham was going to be the winner. There's something about this team, right? Coming in, going through Kansas City, going through Orlando, coming to the West Coast, beating the Spirit, Rose Lavelle, right? We knew that individuals were going to make a difference in this game. Rose Lavelle, you know, 2 years ago with the Reign on the losing side to Gotham FC, and now being the one to score the game-winning goal to lift a trophy. So we got to talk about Rose in the show for sure. Not even to mention the fact that I spent most of the game and the tailgate with Marty and Janet Lavelle.
Mac fireballs.
So many fireballs.
That's true. And I think before we even get to Rose scoring the goal, we need to talk about Bruninha, who, as Rose has said, did a lot of the legwork that allowed the goal to be possible. And Bruninha as an individual, her growth, because we know how that semifinal went last season for her, and also what it says about Gotham's bench.
Yes.
I thought that this was going to be sort of potentially a battle of the benches type of match, and I think Gotham was maybe most convincing in the confidence that they had in their bench.
100%. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk about this game.
We, I think, should start from the beginning.
Mandy Freeman capping.
Yes, I was surprised with that. Bruninha has been phenomenal. I think she's grown so much in the short time that she's been in the NWSL. I think she earned a start. And when I think about players like Kwasi, Gifmende, of course, Sofia Cantore, it felt to me like Bruninha was a better matchup at fullback, at least from the outset.
Yes.
But we'll get to Bruninha in a sec.
Right.
Did that seem to you like a move that you do going into a championship game with like your most...
I mean, what I think is so interesting about Gotham, right, is when you think about the turnover from the 2023 to 2025 squad, right? And Mandy Freeman is also even predating 2023.
Right.
There is something about that experience, right, in a game like this, where I think there is this intangible boost that you can get from someone like Mandy Freeman coming into the squad and having that sort of calming presence for a team. So I think a lot of people, I mean, I know people are looking at that Gotham lineup and being like, what is this man doing? And then you look at what played out in the game, and it was the right call. I know Juan Carlos talked about this, right, in the press conference. Can you break down?
He did, yeah. I mean, he didn't even really try to pretend that it was something else. He was very clear, to the point where he explained to us that before the game he had a conversation with Bruninha that she was not going to be starting, that Mandy was going to be in the starting 11, and that she would have certain responsibilities if it came down to that as a sub, and spoke really highly of her professionalism. She's still, according to him, one of the youngest players on the team, and was ready to serve whatever role she was needed. So I actually think it's worth listening to Juan say it, because it speaks to the intentionality of that roster.
Well, we obviously we had a game plan, and I want to highlight Brew because she's such an amazing professional, one of our youngest players. I think she's the player that has played the most games in the history of the club for like playoff games. And obviously, I decided to drop her today for Mandy to be the captain and to start the game. And when we had the conversation, she was ready for any scenario to help the team on the right back, to help the team on the left back, and give us that penetration on that side. So. Yeah, I'm super proud of Bruna. Like you will never know if she's played the game before, if she's been out of the team. Like she's always focused, work hard. She knows what she needs to do and produce magic. So, when I saw her going those step overs, like I thought that was a very special moment. Very good shot, but it's not credit to me, it's credit to Bruna for sure.
All right, let's move to opening few minutes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, bold move at the start from Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
It was such an interesting, I mean, at this point, I'm in the press box with you guys for a little bit, and I just remember thinking like, oh, they're going at it. They are going at it. There's no caginess here.
Yeah.
We are going for it. But at the same time, it felt like Spirit were a little, like you could sense that something was off, right? Like the nerves, whatever it was, right? Like there were some turnovers that I don't think were expected. A couple early looks, Esther being offside for that goal. What were you feeling through those first, 10, 15 minutes, right? Where it felt like there was a lot of momentum for this to be a battle.
Yeah. In hindsight, of course, I do think that because one of my final thoughts going into the game was, please don't be conservative. Please don't be careful.
Right.
Please just go for it.
Yes.
Because these are two big, ego, complementary, confident teams that crave the spotlight. They crave drama. They, I think, are enjoying these storylines that have been coming out of this matchup. This rivalry?
I mean,
question mark that might be brewing.
Yeah.
And it felt in those first 10 to 12 minutes that they were really feeding off of that, the energy of a sold-out crowd.
It was a little spicy.
It was super spicy.
It was definitely, I mean, there were some tackles. Lily Real getting that yellow in the first half too, I think.
Right before halftime too.
Right, like there was this sense of, bodies were hitting the ground. The pitch, I think, was a little bit
Lips
of a factor.
were flapping.
Yeah, there was definitely some, Midge Purse was heated at one point, right, with that call. Like she got into it a few times, and so I think there was this sense of, championship games can be rough, I think, in terms of quality of game, and this was both, like, it was a little bit rough, but in a super entertaining way.
I completely agree. I was saying within the first 10 to 15 minutes, this game is one of those, and this was something that you've been asking people throughout the week. If this is the first NWSL game that someone has watched, you're asking how they want people to feel. And I just kept thinking to myself, this is a proof of concept kind of championship game. It was end to end, it was entertaining, there was drama, there was skills, there was sauciness too. Like, to the extent, whatever we may have lost from, disconnect or like the impact of nerves, I think we really gained in the entertainment.
Yes. It was transitional, right? Like it was a transitional game, and sometimes those are going to be way more entertaining, but it did, the defense started coming back in.
Yeah.
I think the crowd settled into a little bit, right? And I want to give a shout out to Spirit Squadron and the Spirit crew, because I think they traveled so well, and I think that was such a momentum for bringing the Spirit back into that game in the first half. And I feel like Corey Bethune was feeding off of that, right? Like we saw some great runs from her in the midfield. But at the same time, as I'm thinking, I'm going, the longer this goes without a goal, the more Gotham is looking like this is how it's going to play out. And that is just, there's something about Gotham, right? And not to say that Spirit have not benefited from late drama,
right?
But there was something about, if Gotham can make it to halftime, right? And it's 0-0, and then they can get into that second half and it's playing out. It just played right into Gotham hands, I think.
I think so too. I mean, the way that they have reached this final in the postseason alone, speaking of proof of concept, it is that as long as we don't drop below what we know we are capable of, we can beat anyone.
Right.
And I think, like I said earlier, collectively, I still believe that the Spirit had a stronger squad. But I think that Gotham had higher, quotients of individual players who could change games, as we obviously saw with Rose Lavelle.
Yes.
But I think before we get to Rose, we need to talk about the substitutions that led to the assists on both sides.
Right.
This was a game of substitutions, which I actually don't think anyone saw, especially because the substitutions didn't come in the way that we necessarily thought.
Right.
An injury and a yellow card.
Right. I mean, let's start with Hal Hirschfeld, because that was such the injury happened. There is obviously, and then her coming back in and knowing, okay, right? And did Adrian talk about this in the press conference? Was there sort of
It was a focal point of the press conference, for sure, for Adrian. I think there were some people who may have seen conversation or communication between Trinity Rodman and the bench about Hal needing that substitution. The amount of time, of course, it took, I think, is a huge question mark. Because she was on the sideline for what felt like 4 or 5 minutes, to the point where Midge Purce said that she didn't even remember if she was on or off the field at the time that Gotham scored. We didn't get a ton of clarity on that. Adrian did say that there was no communication in terms of substitutions being needed from Trinity to the bench. But he did say that with a player like Hal, one, you're going to have to drag her off the field. She's not going to voluntarily step off. She was making a huge impact in that game. And two, they were waiting on communication from across the pitch about the timeline of her getting back on the field, and wanted to, of course, give her the opportunity to try. But what a risk. Yeah.
I mean, I just remember, so at this point, I am back with the Gotham crew. I spent the game with the Lavelle family.
Yes, which we need to get to.
We will get to that, but I just remember thinking, she's on that corner for so long.
When she sat down, I was just like, okay, what's the plan here?
Right.
When she was standing up, at least, jumping, kind of warming it up, I was like, okay, but when she sat down and actually started getting treatment, and the ball was still in Gotham's attacking half, third even?
Yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, can someone please make a move?
Yeah, make a move.
And make a move.
I think that is such an interesting thing, right? Adrian Gonzalez's first championship in the head coach role.
Yeah.
I think there is going to be a lesson in that of just whether it's a communication failure, whether it's on him as a coach, whatever it is, right? And knowing that Hirschfeld is so important to this team.
Yeah.
100%, but at the same time, Gotham will punish you for these mistakes. So let's talk about Bernina.
Lily Real yellow card we mentioned right before the stroke of halftime.
Yep.
I know our producer Thea Lloyd Hughes were fully expecting Spirit to go at Lily before the whistle even finished its cry into the second half, because what better opportunity is there to get a leg up in a game that's so tense and so tight?
Yep.
It didn't really happen.
No.
But there was one particular foul that felt very last warning that Real had. And it was sort of feeling like Juan Carlos Amoros was waiting to see how much he could get out of her before having to make that call. Speaking of making calls.
Can we get to 97%?
Yes, finessing that
Real?
line.
Yeah.
And I do think that last sort of crunching tackle where the ref needed to have a conversation with her certainly signaled to him, and he didn't try to pretend when he was asked about this in the press conference that we subbed her off because she had a yellow.
Right.
But as he also mentioned, he had already had this conversation with Bernina. I was struck by the fact that typically it's Bernina and Mandy Freeman who interchange.
Yes.
So for Bernina to come on the left side, replacing Real, felt in a much smaller way like a bit of a risk too. But she was ready.
Right.
She was ready.
Walk me through your point of view of this goal.
The last thing I kind of remember before everything just kind of started flashing in my eyes was Bernina driving toward the end line and stepping over the ball in ways that certainly were giving Marta.
Yes.
And as soon as she started doing that, I started to believe that something was going to come of this sequence. It was something about the determination, the speed at which she was dribbling. I'm also, when she crossed the ball, it went into the direction of Hal Hirschfeld on the touchline, still getting treatment. And it felt kind of cinematic that was sort of in view when Rose received the ball. And I actually, I'm realizing it as I'm saying this, I didn't actually see Rose's foot strike the ball. I looked at where I knew she was going to put it, in the back of the net.
Yes.
I didn't see the shot. I saw the ball hit the back of the net in the far corner.
Right. I think there is something...
Which is crazy to think about.
You know, obviously I'm sitting directly behind her parents, so I'm both watching this play unfold and watching their reaction to this play unfold.
Yes, please walk us through that. How many fireballs were you in?
It was only like 1.5. So like,
how many were they in, if you can share?
I would say probably a healthy 4 or 5.
Okay.
So like, good, but like
pace.
they were, you know, I think there's something about watching your kid on the field, right, and that stress level, and that game was tense, right, and I think there was something really special about sitting with the families and like feeling that tension in such a different way than from a press box or, you know, even as a fan.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we all know what Rose Lavelle is capable of, right?
Yeah.
And seeing her get that moment, seeing it through the lens of watching her parents see her get that moment, right? Like, I remember when Rose Lavelle was drafted in this league, I was at Rose Lavelle's debut for the US Women's National Team. And this is a player that I think everybody knows is one of the best players that we've ever had in the US. And so I think for her to finally get this moment in the NWSL, right? So as good as the goal was, for me, I think it was much more about the moment of that. And then also knowing there's still a pretty healthy amount of time left in this game.
Yes. Yeah. But I have to say, I wasn't too worried about, maybe worried is not the right word, but I was not anticipating an equalizer at that point. I think that by the time Rose scored, the Spirit, at least from like a mental standpoint, kind of seemed like they were just barely hanging on.
Yeah.
I think that the goal obviously punctures enough holes in the hopes that you had to, if you don't have that fortitude, if you don't have that belief, makes it really, really hard to create chances.
It is so interesting too, because they came in with such momentum, right? Like, I think if you told us that, I don't know, 80 minutes into this game, they would look like their mentals were done, we would not have believed you, right? Because you think about that game against Portland in the semifinals and the confidence with which they moved, right?
Yeah.
And also the self-belief they had in the quarterfinals to get past Racing Louisville. And so you have this build, and then to come into San Jose, and I mean, their entire unity all week has been, I think, at a very high level.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand what happened with the Washington Spirit in this game. And I think that like they had a good game in some regards, right? Like they were able to pull back control a little bit, and they were able to get chances. But yeah, I mean, Trinity Rodman as well too. Like, let's talk about Trinity, because she came on earlier than I expected, right? 56th, 7th minute.
57.
So
I do think that Sofia Cantore probably needed to be subbed off. I think that she, to an extent, Gift Monday as well, were uncharacteristically hesitant in ways that I think are very understandable if you're playing in your first NWSL Championship, but in ways that really were not the tempo of the game, especially the later it got. So I didn't have a problem with the change. I had a problem with the timing, and Trinity Rodman said herself after the game that she did not feel like herself. And this is now the second NWSL Championship in which she did not feel like herself. From the first touch, it was clear not only, I mean, before we even get to like the physical health, the readiness, the whatever, the lack of minutes that she's had with her teammates on the pitch in any scenario.
I mean, to be fair though, she is a player that is good enough where I think she can transcend that chemistry issue, right? Trinity Rodman is, you know, the match to Rose Lavelle, where she can have an individual moment and create something out of nothing. Obviously, the Spirit are able to feed her the ball. But I think there was this sense of she was running in a way that, like, you know,
it looked different.
It looked different. And I think it's just disappointing, right, to not be able to see Trinity Rodman at her best in either of these championships.
Yeah.
for that final, when she went down towards the tail end of the game, to have that kind of question mark hang over it. And I think it was really more, the physical part, the emotional part of it. And again, we don't know what is going to happen with Trinity Rodman, but I think if this is where the story ends with the Spirit, it's just such a strange and sort of unexpected ending.
Completely.
That, I don't know, hopefully she feels like it is unfinished business in some form or another, but it really was just, I don't know, I think it was also emblematic of where the Spirit were, right? Like it just felt like everything was turned just slightly too far, right? They were either too under or too over, and they just were not able to find that exact balance that you need to have for an NWSL championship. So.
You know what I just thought of, Meg? I think the Spirit in a game like that needed a player like Andy Sullivan on the pitch.
100%. I mean, this is actually something that our executive producer, Emily Olsen, said during the first half, I want to say, of just, I'm so surprised at how far they've gotten without like this constant leader, right? Trinity Rodman was the one leading in the huddle before this game, and obviously she has taken on such a massive role from the bench, right? Like we have seen her try to step into that role.
And of course, Aubrey Kingsbury.
Yeah, sure. Like they do
up.
have these players, right? But when you think about...
It's a particular kind of leadership.
Right, and I think it's also that leadership from essentially like a quarterback position, right? Like an Andy Sullivan.
Yep.
For Portland, you have Sam Coffey, right? For Gotham, you have Emily Sonnet doing
and she
that.
talked about that after the game, too.
And so I think there is this sense of the Spirit have been trying to figure out how to patch that hole that Andy Sullivan has left.
Yeah.
And, Ashley Hatch was doing it for a while, too. And
especially recently, now that she's a veteran somehow.
I know. Don't even get me started on that front. But that is, I think, one of the really interesting, just the Spirit have gone through so much this year, right? And
they have.
Again, coaching changes, injuries, off the field stuff. Like there is always this other storyline happening around the Spirit. And I don't think they would ever want to use it as an excuse for losing a second championship in a row. But I do think that when you are missing a player like Andy Sullivan, there
even
is...
a Casey Kruger, someone who's been in these moments before, someone who can, we call it tactical timeout, get the group together, throw around some cuss words, rally, resettle, and ground. They needed an anchor kind of like leadership. And when I think about the Washington Spirit project, and again, a lot of roster rotation, a lot of new faces. Deb Abiodun, came on for Hal, and I thought did her very best, but it was clear that this was very new environment for her.
Right.
I think that they have a lot to be proud of. I still think that they were one of the strongest teams overall this season, as the number 2 seed sort of reflected. But as we heard Kristen Press say at the A Touch More show this week, she knows what it feels like to lose 2 championships in a row and wouldn't wish that on anyone. So I'm really curious, how this wound is going to galvanize the team, what kind of changes they're going to make, what their mentality is going to be to start the season. Because I had kind of been thinking that Gotham might be the villains, but this is also the kind of heartbreak that can turn someone into a villain.
I mean,
so
this
maybe
is always, last year, I think when we were at the championship, right, the Spirit losing that game, that to me was going to be the momentum that carried them back to this championship, right? And I think that's exactly what we saw. And now the question is, I think this hurts so much more than the 2024 loss, right? So
especially
much more. Because I think they felt really like that Barbara Banda goal, they had complaints about that, right? And so, it felt tough, but I think they felt like they had a really good game, right? And I think there are going to be bigger questions for the Spirit coming out of this one of, they've got to learn some lessons out of it. What is going to happen to this team? We're going to be in a league with expansion, right? There's going to be changes. Again, the Trinity Rodman question. And so how do you come out of 2024 into 2025 where I think this one is just going to hurt so much more?
So to go back to a point that you made when we started the show, Meg, about dynasties.
Yes.
Or as Theo likes to call them, dynasties. How does a win like this fit into that sort of question?
Yeah, I mean, it is so interesting, right? Because Gotham is coming in as these lower seeds when they're winning these championships,
Yeah.
right? So these are not necessarily dominant runs during the season, though they are very good teams, right? Like, let's not get that wrong. But in America, we do rate championships. So it is really interesting because I think in the previous teams that we've considered NWSL dynasties, right, like a FC KC, North Carolina Courage, usually they were in at least like top 1 or 2, if not Shield winners and championship, right? North Carolina especially. But I do think there is something undeniable about Gotham's run of form in the playoffs over the past 3 years. You've got 2 championships in 3 years. And so I think really the dynasty question can start being asked this year, and it's really what happens next year, right? Because, I mean, I remember talking to General Manager Yael Averbuch over the past couple of off seasons in terms of how she was building this team, in terms of what she wanted to build for long-term success. And we have seen that play out, right? The way that she has gone about building these teams. They have been aggressive with free agency. They have gone and picked up Roosevelt. They've gone and picked up Emily Sonnet, right? And you think about how important they were on this field tonight.
Yeah.
So they are building.
Jaden Shaw this season.
Jaden Shaw this season. They are building to build that dynasty, I think. So I think the question is now open.
Yeah.
And they get to answer it next year.
That feels fair. Because I think the 2023 championship was sort of like the beginning of the first word of the sentence,
Yes.
you know? It's so hard to win even one championship in this league, much less twice in a row. I don't think people really, except maybe for the like diehard fans,
Yeah, understand. Yeah, understand
like
it.
realistically.
Yes.
So I think it's fair to say that like this team is in the conversation of a dynasty in ways that nobody else really can be. There haven't been, I mean, if Washington had won this, maybe that would be a question too. But there's still a bigger gap between their last championship and what could have been compared to Gotham. So I like that. This feels like a new, like, discourse has entered the chat.
I know.
We haven't really had to talk about dynasties before.
No.
I'm going to need an off season to sit with that and like marinate in it. Like that's really a new level, especially as we talk about, you know, the parity and all of that in this league. Like,
I mean, but that is interesting of just, you know, I do think Gotham is a very interesting, this is where we were at the start of the season, right? Because remember how we, at the start of the season, was like, oh, these results are starting to feel a little predictable.
Yeah.
But Gotham was one of our teams. Where we were saying, you look at a Kansas City, you look at Orlando, you look at Gotham, you look at Spirit, and look at who the teams were in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And where we ended up. And we were there at the start of the season. And so, yes, I think parity is still a conversation, but we are seeing teams rise to the top again and again and again. So Racing Louisville, yes, a great story.
yeah.
But kind of the outlier of this postseason.
And it's possible that what Racing Louisville did this season is the beginning of their sentence in the way that Gotham's 2023 was different sentences.
Yeah.
Because you have to build consistency first long before you can start talking about dynasty. But every team's on a different journey.
Yeah.
And I agree. I am expecting to see some consistency in the teams that tend to make it far and those that don't.
Yeah. All right, Tamara. MVP.
I think it's still Jaden Shaw for me.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, across 3 games, like you have 3 games to build a case.
Right. And though she was not involved in, I mean, you know, in ways that appear in stats, in this game-winning goal, I think that she played quite well. I think she rose to the occasion. I chatted with her a little bit in the mix zone. She said she loved it. By it, I mean the smoke. The chirping, the tackles. She actually said that it was funny because some players actually thought the game started calm and then started to sort of like pick up in terms of physicality at least. And we sort of saw the inverse. But Jaden basically said that like as things started to heat up, she got more and more and more invested in it.
You could see it.
This is the furthest she's ever gone in a postseason.
Yeah.
This is completely new for her, the year that she's had. I mean, what other choice is there but to rise to the occasion? And I think her story is playing into it for me. But she, I think, really she pulled something out that we had never really seen from her because this was a new environment for her. And I think especially in the quarterfinal and the semifinals, the roles that she played, the underdog my ass, like,
Yeah,
we gotta give her something for
t-shirt.
that.
She got the t-shirt,
Yeah.
so.
Do you have one?
I mean, I do think Roosevelt was the deserving MVP of the game. But, I mean, Emily Sonnet, I think, for Gotham.
Good shout. That's a good
Emily
shout.
Sonnet for Gotham overall. Again, you want to talk about leadership, you want to talk about that intangible quality. Emily Sonnet, I don't think Gotham wins this championship without Emily Sonnet.
That block.
There you go.
Laying her body on the line. She was... I think this is worth cutting to, the way she said it. I don't even want to paraphrase too much because I'll butcher it, but she was asked about this in the press conference. She was with Rose Lavelle. And I think it's just worth listening to.
They had a great play. They kind of opened up a little bit in the second half. And I felt that was the best way to take almost every angle away. And thank God it worked, kind of thing. I think there was a few teammates around to help just in case. But yeah, I kind of just like pulled that one out, which I'm thankful that it worked out.
What a game. What a season. Not only for Gotham and the Spirit, but just the NWSL as a whole. Like
100%.
This whole championship weekend, which really didn't even begin with the weekend. It started on like Wednesday.
It's been a week.
Every single aspect, Meg, of this like lead up to this game has felt so significantly different from even last year.
Yes.
I think that's what I'm going to be carrying into the offseason is just like the scale and the magnitude that this game is growing.
Right. I mean, 2025 NWSL, I think, set a bar in terms of what this week felt like, what everything. I mean, so also we should say to everyone listening to the show, we're going to have some banked interviews this week coming up. We talked to a whole bunch of people at Media Day. We had our exclusive little athletic panel with Bryce Scurry and Allie Wagner. Great conversation ahead of championship. We've had a very long day out here, Tamara.
Yes.
So we're going to go home. You're going to have plenty of things to listen to this week over the holidays. We hope you have lovely meals. What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
You know, we're keeping it simple. And that's partly because I'm leaving 2 days later to cover the U.S. Women's National Team in World Sevens. But I think everyone's just kind of tired. So it's like a protein, maybe 3 sides and a dessert.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to catching up on all of the television that I've been missing because I've been following these games.
Yep.
Answering some texts that have been lying dormant in my inbox for maybe months.
Sure. Yeah.
Tackle my bookshelf.
Yeah.
You know, relax.
Yeah.
What about you?
Going to DC with the fam, with the baby, first flights.
Yes.
So,
Sam's first trip.
Yeah, it's going to be a time. All right, so before we get out of here, we got to thank, again, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a whole team behind this camera. We've got podcast producer, Theo Lloyd Hughes, our executive producer. They're waving. You can't see this. Emily Olsen.
They're waving like the end of a cheerful Disney movie.
I know. Video producer, Leah Griffin, our incredible social person, Claire Welts. So, yeah, from Fulltime, from San Jose.
Now I'm actually not ready to say goodbye.
We got to do it.
Yeah, it's been great. This was a championship that I think we deserved in terms of the teams. This has been a season that's been truly unforgettable and chaotic in all of the best ways and some of the worst ways as well. But that's this league.
Yeah.
And we're going to enjoy our time off, if we get it, like theoretically time off, and see you soon.